Greetings, Nerd Nation. I'm Josh, and I welcome you to the podcast. Grab a cold evergreen goblet of blue milk and make yourself comfortable here at my House of Nerd. Tonight's sponsor, Spaceballs Luggage. Do you need easy open luggage? If so, then Spaceballs Luggage is the luggage for you. All our luggage has the easy open lock code of 1234. Spaceballs Luggage, where if you lose your code, just ask somebody else what it is. Now back to the show.
Nice.
That was pretty good.
Thanks. Today's on the podcast we have John and Crit, and we're discussing the movie that Crit gave us last week from our three titles, where the titles have changed. And John and I picked the infamous movie of Firebirds with Nicolas Cage, Tommy Lee Jones, and Sean Young. And before we go on, John did a couple of funny titles last week, and I just wanted to, one fell into my head if anybody else hadn't thought of one, and mine was going to be Top Gun Helicopter Edition. So that's
I mean, that's basically it. I mean, they started the film with a knockoff Danger Zone song. So
I'm glad I'm not the only one that felt that way about that song.
Everything about that movie's knockoff. It's great. Except for Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, that's true.
He basically made the movie for me.
I didn't know who he was trying to play at first. Like, was he playing this old maverick who's dying? You know, was he playing this hard A who wasn't going to let Nicolas Cage get away with anything? I didn't know who he was playing at first.
Yes, but I would love to have him as that character describe anything I needed to do, because he would just go on and on and on, and it was great.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, he was great. He was fantastic.
I agree. You know, I think if he wasn't in this movie, I think it would have been a different movie. I mean, he actually put a little bit of made the movie actually kind of good.
Yeah,
he did. He really added to it,
he really did.
You know, and it's funny. I wrote down somewhere around here I wrote right here on the acting styles of everyone. And one of them was Nicolas Cage is stone-like.
Yeah.
No
he
emotion.
Didn't really emote much except for when he was yelling.
I got to talk about some of the ones I just fell on the floor of when I saw this. By the way, I'm going to put it out there. I did not hate this movie.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Let's get the overall, how do you guys feel about the pick, and did you enjoy the movie?
It was an interesting film. I looked up the director afterwards. I had to see what other films he worked on. And he did a lot of TV and TV movies. But then he did a film called Buster, which was based on one of the thieves in the Great Train Robbery, where it starred Phil Collins, out of all people.
Well, wait, Phil Collins did the music for this show.
Mm-hmm.
Did he really?
He
okay,
really
so
did.
I think there's got to be some
2 songs.
I wonder how David Green, this no-name director, is pulling in Tommy Lee Jones, Nicolas Cage, and Phil Collins, of all people. So that was my idea going into this pick. Like, what am I getting into?
So there's nothing else he's done he did nothing else that was that we would know.
No. Nothing that I could find that was.
Well, technically, you guys didn't even know Firebird, so I don't think he ever did anything you would know.
I got to be honest. I saw this movie, and I would have thought I would have saw it in kind of a trailer or something that maybe somewhere back in the. I don't even remember I didn't even look up what year this was.
1990.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was on the cusp of the late 80s, but I was anyway. It had a late 80s feel.
You know, had I watched this as a kid, I would have fallen in love with Apaches.
Oh yeah,
and Apaches are pretty freaking cool. These are really cool helicopters to watch. And you know, when you're 5 or 6, you don't care about the plot or Nicolas Cage yelling things. All you care about is there's really freaking cool helicopters in this movie.
Well, it's right up there with Iron Eagle.
Gosh,
yep.
Yeah, man, that made me.
Which I love, Iron Eagle.
We should do an episode on that one just because.
Well, to tell you the truth, it almost made my guilty pleasures list also. 3 last week.
Yeah, where he's going.
But I'm glad Firebirds won out though, because
I
Yeah,
agree.
me too, actually.
I will, I have to say no, I don't agree. At least for the first 10 minutes of Nicolas Cage's performance.
Oh, I've got some good
I
notes on that,
I
dude.
didn't think he could be more dry. I mean,
Oh,
he's a dry actor to begin with, but then he's playing this military man. And it changes. I mean, he becomes a creeper later on, but in the beginning, he's
so
this very
creepy.
dry, Air Force man, and it was hard to sit through. I'm like, what did I just sign up for? There's an hour and a half of this. That was my first thought.
Well, it's like I said, he's stone like, and then I said Tommy Lee's Tommy Lee. I mean, is he any different? Thankfully he was there to like go against that, his kind of crazy acting and stuff like that. Man, they always talk about Nicolas Cage's acting, dude. And, I watch a lot of movies and I was like, yeah, okay. I see some of them, like a little bit in The Rock and stuff like that. But this is like one of those movies that definitely is like the crazy side of his acting.
Well, to give you some perspective, he did Firebirds in 1990, and then he basically reprised that role in The Fugitive. The same kind of fast talking, down to business, and I think The Fugitive is the better version of it, but you can see Firebirds being like the genesis of that character.
Absolutely.
Kind of like how he brought it and stuff like that. And I thought that was neat because it's a lot more loose and obviously the story's a lot less compelling than
Fugitive.
Than The Fugitive, but it's still like that.
But only by a little bit less compelling.
Yeah, it's the same character. And I think he really elevates the movie with it.
He started out as such a stoic baddie, and stoic. I wish it was somebody else playing stoicism, but it's Nicolas Cage being stoic, so it's hard. But he starts out as this stoic baddie, but within 20 minutes, he becomes a high schooler with a creeper vibe.
Oh,
yeah. I hated his dynamic with Sean Young.
Oh,
absolutely!
It was terrible.
Cringy. It was.
Beyond
I skipped
cringy.
past one scene because I was just like, nope, can't do it. It hurts how much of a creeper high schooler he was.
Oh yeah, straight up. She's like, I'm done with it, and he's like, no, you're not. I didn't say we could be. It's like, dude.
Okay, while we're on this topic, I cannot believe she goes from this, like get away from me, get away from me, get away from me. How fast did she transition to I want to have sex with you now?
Yeah. They needed a sex scene. I think that's what it came down to.
It went from like the bar scene where she's like, stay away from me, we're never getting back together. And then
to the I learned something about dominance.
Eye dominance.
No, it's just dominance. He just says dominance. I learned something about dominance. And he makes her close both of her eyes. I tried that line on my wife. It didn't go over really well.
Okay. So, wait. I thought you didn't like the character. Why would you try something that he did?
One thing looked okay. It wasn't. Maybe I was just trying to prove my point that it was a horrible dynamic.
Okay. I'm going to be on. I mean, that whole eye dominance part thing of like, he can't, oh my goodness. Like, then that's where they like started to like, the whole like, well, Tommy Lee Jones, this leads into one of my most awkward scenes right here of this entire movie, where after she says, well, the Tommy Lee's character can help you with that. He helped me, or whatever she said, something like that. Well, then the next scene is Nicolas Cage basically like bum rushes Tommy Lee Jones in the supermarket and with his 3 girls and starts going, hey, can you help me? He's like, no. And then all of a sudden he starts feeding his daughter with the bottle. Did you notice that? While Tommy Lee Jones has like an armful of Campbell's soup cans.
Yeah.
It was it was a scene that just came out of nowhere. And there was like no lead up to it or anything. And yet I laughed my butt off over it. It's like, why are you feeding his kid all of a sudden? That's weird.
That's his character.
Yeah. I mean, he's sitting in a simulator yelling, I am the greatest. I mean,
oh my gosh.
A guy that is
that scene
that is wired correctly.
I had to stop because I was laughing so hard.
Me too.
And I'm just like, what WTF is this? Is he's just yelling, I am the greatest?
Like what military place would let somebody just do that? They'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Come on.
The part that I got right before that, I thought it was just like really like out of left field when he sits down, he goes, "You want some strawberry gum?"
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's supposed to be some type of shtick because he's always chewing gum when he's in.
Except for that,
and then he goes,
I
have a pocket full of quarters for this arcade machine. I was
it goes away after he gets serious, after the whole eye dominance solution thing.
I think you're reading too much into it. I think the director forgot. I think after a while they just forgot the whole gum thing. It's like maybe they ran out of budget.
Well, you think they ran out of a budget for strawberry gum? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. The budget on this film was...
That type of thing is usually an actor thing. That's usually not a director thing.
Yeah.
Unless the writers actually put in, here's a thing that you do.
The writers put in.
I think he was just doing Nicolas Cage, doing his best before. Well, I can't remember the actor's name, so never mind. But anyway,
the writers did put in things like "Mad Turtle on your 11," and Tommy Lee Jones quote, "Kill them, deader than hell." And just like, what the heck?
Well, it's not like I wonder if the writers had any military experience, but what do I know?
That
Tommy Lee had some really good sayings. I wrote one that was before that down. Busy as a 3-peckered goat. That was I was just like, oh my goodness.
That's great.
How can you write that stuff? They always talk about George Lucas, you're writing stuff. Like, how can you write that kind of stuff? How do you write stuff like this?
Well, and then his pronunciation of helicopter. You got to get in that helocopter. I'm just like,
he did, didn't he?
All right. Yeah, every time helocopter. You got to get that helocopter. And then sometimes he would drag it out.
Okay.
You got to get that helocopter.
Yes, but how badass was he during the Stinger thing with at the very end?
With Sean Young.
Yeah. Where he's just like turn around and shoot that thing. It's just great.
That was pretty badass.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that whole time, I was like, if Tommy Lee Jones dies, so help me. This movie, I will call in sick to I'll call in sick to the podcast. If he dies, I'm not even going to talk about this film anymore.
Yeah, I
kill
really
off their one good character.
I really couldn't, care less about any of the other characters, but Tommy Lee makes.
They spent so much time on Tommy Lee Jones setting up his story, setting up his wife and his kids.
He had the whole sub story.
If you kill me, if you kill him, oh good heavens!
Yeah, Nicolas Cage didn't have a character, so because of that, they couldn't stick to him. All he had was the old romance. That's it.
Yeah, and that weird little dance scene at the bar,
dude, or the laundromat scene, where he goes and tracks her down.
That was weird.
You can't resist me. Cheesy scream.
I think the director was like, "What's the closest thing to underwear or nudity we can have her wear?" And some guy's like, "I don't know, a tube top and shorts, something." They tried to find something that was towing the line, and they got stuck with this horrible wardrobe decision.
She's a pretty lady, and they chose really bad for her in a lot of places. Oh my!
And they had her.
I think it's just bad writing for her.
That's true.
I've seen her act. She can act really well.
Well, you remember her? She's Rachel in Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you take that acting there and the writing there, and you compare it to Firebirds, and I think it's absolutely an issue with writing.
Yeah, I think it's just the writing.
Well, Tommy Lee. We know he's a good actor. We know Sean Young's a good actor. Nicolas Cage is medium.
Did anybody else notice that that before Instagram was created, somehow the antagonist at the Chopper had Instagram level photos of him?
Yeah.
Where are we getting these photos from? They're like a photo of just his eyes.
On my notes, I have Instagram for cartels.
Yeah, exactly.
You're kidding me.
That's as the general is sitting there in his briefing room, he's going through the slides, and it's literally some high school cheerleader's Instagram with a sepia tone filter on it.
It's great.
Why do we have to have sepia? This is 1990. We can have color photos.
They got a couple of long shots from far away, and then they've got these up close, profile shots of that
Who's
perfectly
taking this?
Looking into the camera. I'm like, did this guy come to Hollywood, get a bunch of pictures made, and the military got a hold of it? What's going on?
These are his.
No, he had glamour photos taken in his helicopter.
This is the actors. This is the actors' glamour photos.
Did you hear about where the attack or were the antagonists trained?
No.
One of them was North Korea.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, oh, they have advanced attack helicopter,
in North
specifically
Korea.
that model in North Korea.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well,
interesting.
There was, they had this thing of just reusing things too.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you noticed the briefing room. That's the briefing room from Starship Troopers.
Do you know what I wrote around about that briefing room? I wrote down
What?
it looked like Dr. Evil's lair at the very beginning of like Austin Powers.
Kind of, yeah.
That is the same briefing room of Starship Troopers.
It is.
Now Starship Troopers came after Firebirds because that was 97, but it's still that same thing. And so I guess they didn't reuse it so much as just left it around. I thought it was before. My bad.
It looks like it's been used many, many times over in many, many different movies. They could even go back as far as James Bond for that matter.
Did you get the feeling of John Madden in those briefings?
No.
Someone's gonna die and shoot the other guy, and it's just like these briefings are useless because it's like John Madden giving out these directions here.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't full of actual tactics, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice you guys were talking, you were talking about the helicopters and they reusing things when they were doing like, okay, the Top Gun style, like training montages, and like, it was like always like really short, like useless cuts of the same terrain that they were going over into valleys and stuff. It's like, did you guys not have a budget to like even put together like a decent amount of like,
they spent
B-roll
their whole
there?
budget on the helicopters.
They
had to have dropped their whole budget on doing the military.
They had a lot of helicopters. It wasn't low budget.
Okay.
This wasn't low budget?
Well, I mean,
that was my first thought.
In effect, it might be, but come on, think about it.
Maybe ineffective budget would be a better word.
Yeah,
I could go with that.
I mean, they just didn't have much of a story. I mean, they had the fight against the cartel. They had the love story, and then they had the
Tommy Lee Jones getting older thing.
Tommy Lee Jones being 40 and somehow being washed out.
Yeah, right.
Because that was
He's
his
like,
40th
I'm
birthday.
40, and I'm like, I'm 32. I'm not cool. I'm not as cool as Tommy Lee Jones at 40. I have 8 years to get there. Is what I thought. But hey, they had enough budget to show that one unnamed Instagram bad guy like turning into this blood bag before the helicopter exploded. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Yeah,
where he like explodes into the before the helicopter.
5 frames is like as the shots go through his helicopter and through his body.
Yeah, it was. I'm like, they had enough budget for that.
And then that little helicopter exploded a lot.
Yeah, right. It had a bigger explosion than the jets.
Yeah,
the jets didn't have the same explosion. Speaking of, the explosion for the jets was the same.
So I just looked it up, guys. Firebirds had a $22 million budget, and it made back.
That's in 1990.
Yep, and it made back $14,760,000.
Ooh,
451. Yep.
Lost its budget. That's crazy.
Yep.
No wonder the director didn't get anything else.
Well, yeah. No wonder.
Wonder. Yeah, exactly. And that's, and you got to understand that at that time, 22 million was a lot of money. I mean, a lot of people made some big movies that we've seen on a $22 million budget. Or right in that
Top Gun was 1986. So like this came out like, what? This is worse acted.
This was
worse shot, and has a worse story. And it's like, yeah, bad writing and everything else like that. But this was a guilty pleasure because it's just watching Tommy Lee Jones ham it up and getting to see kind of some
horrible
weird interactions
CGI.
with Nicolas Cage. I didn't see any CGI. Was there any CGI?
The CGI for the simulator.
Sorry. Oh, the simulator.
Yeah,
all the computers.
Horrible.
Oh no, dude, that's 89 level. That actually looks pretty good for 89.
It looks really similar to like Iron Eagle and games like or shows like that. Yeah,
that's true.
We saw worse in Babylon 5, and that was what, 96?
Yes. That sounds just awful. All polygons. It's just one solid polygon.
I'm going to check if this guy directed any Babylon 5 episodes.
You know what I loved about this movie? I mean, seriously, it's not a great movie at all. but it did keep my attention. And one of the things I was like, okay, so I was joking with my wife about like, man, this has some of the best horrible one-liners of all these movies. And that's what I just kept enjoying. Like one of the ones I wrote down, because I just kept pulling out these like one-liners and whole scenes, like the scene where he's flying with Sean Young, and she's his scout, and they start going, he's like flirting with her in the air. He's like, I have you on my tail. And he's like, oh, I love looking at your tail. And, and then he goes, and then the whole, I'm on top, and,
I'm just waiting for some general to break in and say like,
me too.
That's harassment.
And then he's saying stuff like
completely sexual harassment.
It is. And then he says stuff like, I'd love to nail it. You like me on top, loaded and ready. And then she says, that gun sometimes doesn't go off. And he goes, well, I try not to let that happen. That's what you're here for. I mean, it's stuff like that was just weird. Amazing. Like that's what kept my attention so hardcore. And I wrote down so many of these like one sayings, let's see. Oh, this one. Here's this one. The dark flying was, it's Sean Young comes up to him when she starts talking about the eye thing in that courtyard. Mm-hmm. And she's like, dark flying. It's like having sex. Nobody gets it right the first time.
Right. Well, that whole sequence of scenes too, when he's running with the panties on his head.
I was just going to bring that up.
Periscope, and then that periscope shifts like it was on one different eye at one of the times, and then it's like half off of his eyes, half on his eye, and it's just like this is the dumbest.
And I love how they played it too. Everybody's like, "Is that red panties?" Every person.
I'm just like, why did you have to use? I don't get it. Was that the only like binding material you could have in the military? Nothing like duct tape? Nope. Let's find some panties. It's probably the same panties from the scene he had with her with Sean Young in the laundromat.
I hate to know this, but it isn't.
Oh,
the ones he had were.
It should have been. Red. It should have been the same one.
Okay. I know it just sounds like
they missed an opportunity.
Were you being like really like watching it and like rewinding and fast forward to make sure that or
well,
like how did you know that?
It's a drinking game. Basically, every time you see a different color panty, you have to take a drink.
So you had a total of what, 2 drinks in this movie?
Yeah, I had about 3.
No, she was folding a few pairs, so never mind. There was probably a few drinks there.
Yeah.
Because that was the only way they could say how hot can we make this scene? Well, make her fold underwear. That's because everyone likes folding laundry. That makes a hot movie.
I was hot. What? You gonna say something against?
It was 88 degrees on the day I watched it. So
oh my goodness.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, they cheaped out on the weirdest things. The equipment for the eyes and the Apaches, they look like vacuum cleaner parts. I think they bought a Hoover and then just cut pieces of the tube off.
Well, especially like the end scene where they're sitting on the ground and you could tell that's a piece together, like, mock-up of it,
Maybe, I don't know.
I was going to point out one more.
It could have been late 80s actual tech for the.
It might have been.
Because they actually were sitting in real Apaches. So.
You're absolutely right. Well, then the late 80s late tech for them looked like vacuum cleaner.
Well, it's definitely possible. I don't know. No one's out there doing that research. Whether or not Firebirds was accurate, I don't think that's like the least of its problems.
I'm gonna start taking notes for these kinds of movies. And look
okay.
Up accuracy here.
Yeah, there you go.
Find Google screenshots of.
Well, now you guys can see why it was a guilty pleasure of mine.
Oh, I love it.
It is. Thank you so much for sharing it.
I wanted to bring up one more scene just so because it like talks about before we move on. One more scene that I just got a kick out of because this is like classic Nick Cage, and it's like right at the end, and it's that whole scene where he's like talking to Sean Young, and he finds out that that she's gonna go on the mission, to pull in the whole misogynistic thing, and what? You can't go on the mission because I love you, type thing.
Yeah.
And that whole scene's like really weird. And then when she says, basically walks away and says, you can't tell me what to do type thing. Did you look in the background at what he did?
Yeah, it's his shot.
He's kicking air.
He kicks the air.
Like a tantrum, like a baby.
There's a high schooler. Absolutely.
I don't know. I didn't know any high schoolers that would even do that.
He got mad so fast and kicked the air. It was hilarious. And his Nick Cage like scream. Oh my goodness.
It's just Nick Cage. I don't know is this before he went like totally off the rails?
This is before.
Define off the rails with Nick Cage. Though.
No, like he did stuff like this, and then he actually got into like his serious like movie stuff, and then he started going off rails again after that.
Yeah.
Which he's kind of back and forth right now. Like every once in a while he'll do a good one, and then he's got like mostly junk. 75% junk, 25%. Hey, that's not bad.
I mean, this was before Face Off, so
that
with John Travolta.
That was more John Woo than those two.
Well, the scenes where he's playing John Travolta's character.
Oh, I know,
that was creepy.
That was great,
and he got weird.
It was great. All right.
So I think that was a good discussion. Let's give your personal ratings about this movie, guys. What'd you think overall? On a level of awesomeness, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm giving this a 2.5 level of awesomeness. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great either. But enjoyable. I don't want to watch. Probably want to watch it again, by the way.
Would I feel comfortable watching this with my mother? And the answer to that is probably not. That underwear scene was, too much. Misogyny is too rampant. I think Nicolas Cage would turn her on. So
I give it 45 Nick Cage kicks out of 100.
Dude, that's like middle of the road Nick Cage kicks.
Yeah. It's fun, but it's not like peak crazy Nick Cage where it's just entertaining just watching him.
Yeah.
And it's also not like, it's not like the worst movie ever, right?
You're right, because like we're talking about, if Tommy Lee hadn't been in this movie, I probably would have got bored really fast.
Yeah, without Tommy Lee Jones, it would have.
Even the fight scenes weren't that great. I mean, the dog fights and stuff like that, they were entertaining.
Well, that mock battle, the ending mock battle, was one of the most anticlimactic battles I've ever watched. It's suddenly he's over the rock and he's got him. I'm like, well, that's great.
Yeah, he goes over that rock and then tucks himself in and boom. It's like, that was over.
I think they're basically trying to pull the Top Gun, I'm going to let them fly right past us
trick. They were.
And so it's like, but then the rookie knew where he was going, so he came around the backside instead. So yeah, whatever. It's helicopters. What are you going to do? They made it as exciting as you can possibly make it.
But if you notice, they did put a couple jet fighters in to mix it up a little bit.
No, that was jet fighter in there twice.
Well, yeah, of course. But 2 jet fighters.
What? That was the same one? What?
But the interesting thing I thought was one of the things that Tommy Lee Jones' character actually did say was, when you engage, you either fight or you die. You're not fast enough to run away. And I was like, yep,
that's true.
That actually puts things in a little bit. It's like if you choose to engage, you're in the fight. You don't have a choice because you are not fast enough to get away.
Yeah, this dinky little helicopter.
Well,
that's some good words of encouragement from Tommy Lee out of that movie. Wow. I told you it had some good one-liners in the whole thing, man. There you go. There's another good one-liner in a different way.
Yeah.
Like actually good.
I picked the movie. I already knew how classic it was.
I really did have fun with this movie.
It should be in the Criterion collection.
Speaking of picking movies, I have my titles for you.
Okay. All right. So yeah, hold up. Before you say that, I want to do it because we're still, so new with our channel and stuff. I want to kind of go over what's going on. So, we're doing as our format is now, for those who haven't been with us too long or seen any of our videos to this point, the theme of the month, we have a theme of the month every month, and the theme for the month of July is guilty pleasure movies. And if you haven't been here before with us, what we do is each week one of us picks 3 movies where the titles have been changed based on the content of the movie. And then those 3 movies are presented to the other 2 where we have to guess what the movies are. And then the 2 who are guessing have to come to a unanimous pick of one of those 3. And then we all watch that movie and then come back like we did tonight. And we watch that movie and talk about it. And John's giving it to us tonight. Give it to us, John. Hard.
All right. The first one. those pants are under pressure, or am I lying?
Okay.
The second one is, the cat's gone, and so is a finger. The third one is, the devil went down to Georgia for a custody battle.
Oh my God.
So let me give those to you again. The first one is, those pants are under pressure,
Okay.
or am I lying? The second one is, the cat's gone, and so is a finger. And the third one is, the devil went down to Georgia for a custody battle.
You feeling anything, Crit?
They are all totally blank. I don't even think I can guess any of these.
This is great.
I'm thinking I'm really leaning toward the missing finger and the cat one.
That's because it has cats in the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with the cat's gone, and so is the finger.
Okay, so I'll reveal that one last. So
Okay.
the first one was, those pants are under pressure, or am I lying? That's Labyrinth with David Bowie.
Oh, Labyrinth. That would have been great to talk about. We'll have to bring that up again some other time.
Oh, I wish I would have picked that one.
How is that a guilty pleasure? Never mind. Go ahead.
It's a pretty guilty pleasure.
How is it
Okay,
guilty? It's like
the
one of
devil.
the best movies out of the 80s.
Okay, we'll have to have a podcast on why that's wrong.
Wait, if it's a guilty pleasure for you, why are you picking it if you don't like it?
Okay, no, it's a guilty pleasure. I'm not saying, but there's a reason it is. Okay, so the third one was, the devil went down to Georgia for a custody battle. That was Constantine.
Constantine?
With,
Yeah,
Keanu
okay.
Reeves.
Keanu Reeves. Yeah,
Dang it. I love that movie too. That's not even a guilty pleasure to me. It's not a good movie, but I really like
It's
it.
not a good movie. That's
It's
why
not
it's
a
a
good
guilty
movie.
He
pleasure.
hasn't named a guilty pleasure yet. He's named
I've-
actually good movies.
No, these are guilty pleasures. Some of them. Come on.
Okay. Come on.
Constantine definitely is.
Constantine's great.
The third one is, the cat's gone, is so is a finger. This is the one you picked, and it's Boondock Saints.
I've never seen Boondock Saints.
Yeah, I've seen it. This is a great movie also.
This is a
Also
good
not
one.
really a guilty pleasure in my book.
For you, in your book,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely a guilty pleasure. For me.
The other two I've seen before. I've never seen Boondock Saints. So this
I think
is
you'll
a
absolutely
good
love it.
opportunity for me to see it.
We should watch that one together on Thursday.
You want it?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, we should definitely do that Thursday.
Okay, I'll wait till Thursday.
It's so quotable.
So
That's great.
to give you the tagline, it's, two Irish Catholic brothers become vigilantes and wipe out Boston's criminal underworld in the name of God.
Yeah.
I had no idea what
This
it
is-
was about.
This is absolutely a guilty pleasure movie with that tagline and with Willem Dafoe's performance.
Oh,
This
Willem
is-
Dafoe's performance is
this is
so good.
Willem
absolutely a
Dafoe's
guilty
in this
pleasure.
movie? I didn't even know
Yes,
that.
and he's amazing. He's basically Tommy Lee Jones in Firebirds.
Yep,
I can't wait to see this movie. Oh my goodness.
it's fantastic. So that's your movie you're supposed to watch this week.
All right, Boondock Saints it is. I can't wait to see it. And I'll get with you on Thursday, Crit, and let's watch this heck out of
Yeah,
that
for
thing,
sure.
man. And you too, John, if you decide to join us. Anyways, well, let's wrap it up. I just want to tell everybody thanks out there for listening to Josh's House of Nerd tonight. And one of the things I've been starting out of there, if you want to put in a sponsor spot like we've been doing early out of my fake sponsor spots, I'm just asking out there if you have any please submit those in our comments below. And as always, may you be excellent to each other and live long and prosper. From all of us at Josh's House of Nerd. Good night.
Thanks for watching. For more nerdy awesomeness, please like and subscribe and check out our